Sunday school teacher, I appreciate you being with us. We wrap up our study of James this week. We are working on the Bible study for Sunday, November 25th. This last study in the book of James is entitled With Anticipation. And we're going to be in James chapter 5. We're going to be looking at a couple of verses there in chapter 5. And the point of this lesson is that believers should turn to God when facing trials of life. And so James is going to be talking to them about the Lord's second coming and that we need to have an anticipation of that, and we need to be patient for that, and we need to be prepared for that. But knowing that He's coming is a reason for us to live our life, but also to endure the hardships that we are presently experiencing. So, as we look at these verses, a couple of points. As we wait expectantly for Christ's second return, we are to live out our Christian faith in our daily life. We don't quit. We don't give up. We don't get discouraged. We know that it could be any moment of any day. And it's been that way for generations. And it could be today. We are to continue working to advance Christ's kingdom and His redemptive purpose. We don't quit. No matter what. No matter how bad it looks or how good it looks. We don't quit. When He comes, we are to be found faithful. In other words, don't wait until He comes to start doing what's right and what you're supposed to do. Do it now because you don't know when He's coming. In some of the verses that we're going to look at today, it's important that we understand this, that in previous references to rich people, James did not give us an indication of whether or not the rich people that he referred to were Christians. But in these verses that we're going to look at, most definitely these rich people that we're going to look at were non-Christians. They were oppressing the Christians by withholding their due pay, and that's what we're going to see in verses 1 through 6. And the implication was that God would call those oppressors into account. That's going to happen. So let's look at these. Chapter 5, verse 7 is where we'll start. He says, "Therefore, brothers and sisters, be patient until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth and is patient with it until he receives the early and late rains." Verse 8, "You also must be patient. Strengthen your hearts because the Lord's coming is near. Brothers and sisters, do not complain about one another so that you will not be judged. Look, the judge stands at the door." If you go back and you read verses 1 through 6 of chapter 5, you're going to see that the believers were suffering under rich people's oppression. Their bosses were withholding their pay, basically. And James reminds them that don't act non-Christian. Just because your boss acts non-Christian does not give you a reason to act non-Christian. He says, know that one day, those who have done evil to you will be held accountable. You do what's right and let God take care of the rest. They were not merely to wait on the Lord to return, but they were to endure while going through these trials. In verse 7, he says, be patient. Be patient. To make his point, he uses the illustration of a farmer. The farmer worked the ground. He sowed the seed. Then he plowed the seed under. And then he waited for the rains to come in the spring and the fall. And the result of the rains would be the growth, and eventually the harvest would come. A farmer has got to have patience. And so that's what James is saying, that as you endure this,